Hey YouTube. Today I'm talking about the theory behind the new Raptor fight playthrough or strategy. And I'm going to be explaining it first with, of course, stamina values. This is the crux of the new Raptor strategy, is stamina. But first of all, I need to explain some certain things with stamina. These are all of the new updated stamina runtimes. The redo of this graph that Jay did to make it look prettier, he accidentally got the Omni one wrong. So he's going to have to do that one again. He's put it down as 1 minute and 30 something seconds of running when it's about 2 minutes 25. So a bit silly, but what can you do? As you can see here, everything has different amounts of stamina, but the stamina percentages are what really matter. Effectively, if you drain 1% of that dinosaur stamina, that is still 1% across all dinosaurs. So if you had an attack that was able to consistently remove a certain amount of stamina from that dinosaur, it would become very, very strong, simply because of the new resting and standing things. To reiterate, if you are at 0% stamina, you have to sit. When you hit 25% stamina, you can then start standing to recover stamina as well as sitting. If you hit 50%, you can then start Z-walking. And when you hit 75%, you can then start trotting to regen stam. Effectively, at 25% intervals, the movement option you have available to you becomes faster, and you can still recover stamina. Very, very important. So now we look at the Raptor matchups. Oh, wrong one. Raptor bleeds. It should be Raptor matchups. I need to rename these two. So if I just quickly zoom into this, these are the old coefficients. I still need to test the new coefficients, so this isn't as detailed as I would like, but it is useful at the start. Here we are looking at the stamina used to buck a Raptor, the bucking time, and the standing bleed. These numbers were actually changed recently, especially these three were changed. This shows you the stamina the dinosaur is left with after the buck. This needs to be changed then to 76. Right. Like that. So, what does it show us? It shows that for a Paki to pounce a Raptor, it goes down to 52% stamina, meaning that it loses 48% stamina. So what we can actually do live is, let me just sort out my microphone again because I actually need to do some typing. La 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 la. See, this is what you guys actually love about my videos. It's the fact that I don't have time to properly edit things and do things in advance, meaning that you get to see me do things live. Isn't that fun? Stamina remaining, stamina lost. So what we just do here is a very, very simple equation. 100 minus top one, and we drag this across. Ta-da! Beautiful. So we have the Paki loses 48% of its stamina in 13 seconds. Aha. And the bleed it will take while standing takes it to 69.55% bleed. Right? That's what the value will show for the Paki. And we keep going across, and we see that the bleed number that you get to starts decreasing until you reach Kano, where it drops quite a lot, and Stego, where it does nothing, and Dino, where it also does nothing. But Dino is still very, very important. As you can see, against a Paki, if you get 2 Raptors on a Paki, it will be completely out of stamina. It'll have 2% left. And you could just, bite it to death. You see? With Dino, it's a bit harder. Loses 40% of its... it loses 60% of its stamina. Very, very bad for Dino to actually buck. I'm fairly sure these two numbers are actually reversed. I'm actually fairly sure this was meant to be 60. I kept fucking it up. I don't remember. It is actually meant to be 60. Damn, this graph is awful. So the Dino gets down to 60% stamina. You can see the amount of stamina it loses decreases the higher and higher up you go. And it therefore loses 40% stamina in 9 seconds. Incredible. But as you can see, it actually loses a similar amount of bleed to the Paki. Meaning that if you get 2 Raptors onto a Dino, and the Dino starts to run, it might actually bleed out pretty fast. Very good to know. You then reach Serrado, which got a major buff through this. Serrado's bleed stamina time was actually, stamina loss was actually pretty more similar to these two. It now got buffed up a bit. 72 over, loses 28 stamina over 13 seconds. A very, very strong buck. And it loses about 12 bleed through a full pounce, which is actually pretty good for the Serrado, right? Not bad. But do remember that if you do a full pounce versus Serrado, it will drop to very, very low health. The full pounce does about 880-ish damage, which is what these numbers over here we're trying to find out. So yeah, you'll be at half health, which means you're taking a lot of bleed. But, you know, if you get pounce fully. But against, you know, you get 2 Raptors on, you might actually drop below that value, and this number will be way, way higher. So keep that in mind. Tenno as well. We have a 24% stamina lost over 10 seconds. Still a very, very strong buck, simply due to the lack of bleed you really take. Then you have Kano, which is a lot longer buck time. As you can see, more bleed taken. Still same out 24. Then you get to Stego, right? Stego's buck time got changed in the time of recording these things. I've been waiting to actually properly publish some of these because in my older videos, I say that it's 24 seconds because it used to be 24 seconds. This got changed. It's 19, which is why I said at the end of that video that it's been annoying making videos currently because things just keep changing so quickly that by the time we have a strategy mapped out, something changes. So there you go. So you can say longest buck time of all of the dinosaurs, right behind Kano, loses 24% of its stam, you know, but loses 8% of its speed. Thing is, it is easier to pounce a Stego than it is to pounce a Kano. But as you can see, the bigger the dinosaur is, the more stamina they are losing. Ish. It's hard for me to explain. It's not the more stamina they're losing, it's that it's a longer time spent on them, right? Meaning that while a Dilo could kill a Paki very, very quickly with pounces, it is harder to land a pounce on the Paki, and the Paki can punish it better. A Stego requires more punishing to kill a Raptor. Back when this was 24 seconds, it was very, very definite. Stego was a very, very good target for Raptor. Same thing with Dino, right? But effectively, what it shows is that once you get to the bigger dinosaurs, the amount of bucking with how easy it is to pounce them is far more detrimental. So if we now do this, if I now do a tool here, if I now do these in, actually all the way up to Tenno actually, it is very, very hard to pounce a Tenno. Very, very hard to pounce Paki, Dino, and Serrado. In fact, Serrado you don't really get that much bleed out of. A Kano is in the middle, so it can be yellow. Yellow's very, very common. We do orange. It's still quite hard to pounce a Kano. Plus, even if you don't get the pounce on a Kano, the Kano will be able to chase you down. Same thing with Tenno, the same thing with Serrado, the same thing with Dino. They can just chase you down after you pounce them because you have less stamina than you used to have. So you can't properly run away from them. Stego and Dino, however, fit our criteria perfectly, which I can put in a little text box here, which are green is equal to easier to pounce, cannot be chased, after pounce, and long pounces, high stamina usage. Cool. That can now stay there on the screen. Meaning that, effectively, the best and easiest target for Raptors to go up against is a Stego. Despite this, Stego is still a very, very hard fight. But if you compare it to fighting a Dino, it's much easier to fight a Stego. So how does this strategy now work? Well, it's very, very simple. A Stego takes 5% of its stamina to do a swing. We can do here, we can just do 5% per swing, right? Which meaning that a Stego has 20 swings. Now, some of you can now see where this is going. If the Stego drops below 75%, it has to T-walk. If it drops below 50%, it has to stand. If it drops below 25%, it has to sit. So I can actually just do this. I can do less than. There you go. So if it's less than 25%, it has to sit. Meaning that if you get 4 Raptors on a Stego, which is far easier to do than 4 Raptors on a Tenno, or a Kano, or a Serrado, simply because these dinosaurs are more mobile, meaning that they can dodge your pounce, and you have to factor in the 30-degree cone around the head and the tail, much easier to pounce as a Stego. If 4 Raptors get on a Stego and it bucks it is remained with only 4% stamina, and it takes 5% for it to swing, meaning that it has to sit to get that 1% back. You see? And then, if you then start adding more and more bleed, it becomes harder and harder to gain that stamina back. Meaning that what you can do is get the stego to do one swing, and then if all 4 raptors go onto it, it has 0 stamina left after bucking. 0. And you can just bite it to death. Meaning that the new raptor strategy, effectively, in my opinion, seems to be that as a raptor, you want to pounce larger targets, and you want to waste dinosaur stamina and then pounce them. You see. This video is also being made after the Horde test change, where there are attack cooldowns. After you do an attack, and the animation returns back to normal, you have a 1-second delay before you can do another attack. We actually had a very, very good stego fight, and that should be posted alongside this video, so you can see it in action. So, what happens? What happens is that you can bait out the stego swing, and it has 2 seconds after that swing initially goes out and reaches its peak. It returns back, 1-second cooldown, which allows all of your raptors to jump on, you see? Which makes it a very, very strong fight. In my opinion, it seems to be that, given the fact that Cerrado has a hard time fighting against stego, and Carno can't really fight stegos, and Dino can kind of fight stegos, especially once the rework is done near water, and it can actually use its hallucinations near water. The small tier carnivores that hunt in packs are actually a lot better at fighting these bigger dinosaurs. The issue is that Dino is very, very good at fighting Cerrado, Tenno, and Carno, whereas Raptor sort of struggles. But with the new changes to attacks, Raptors now get better at fighting them as well, because you can bite them. So effectively, with these dinosaurs, you want to kill them with bites. With Carno, you want to just waste its stamina and then pounce it. And with Stego and Dino, you want to kill them with pounces. You see? It seems to me, as I'm saying before, looking at all of the data, it really does look like the devs want pounce to be used against bigger and bigger targets, or when your other targets have an opportunity to be pounced. But you get less out of pouncing a Tenno or a Cerrado or a Carno than you would out of pouncing a Stego, simply because longer bleed time, you spend longer on them, you know, which is nice. You know, it is hard for me to explain. Back when this was 24 seconds, it was very, very nice because you'd get more bleed out of it, whereas now you don't really. So, But as you can see, just getting 24% of their stamina gone. Especially with Carno and Tenno, they can much better defend themselves even with low stamina, right? These dinosaurs all have attacks at low stamina that will still be devastating to you. A Stego eventually will not be able to swing. A Carno, Tenno, Cerrado, Pachida, they can all still alt bite you. Stego can't do anything, right? Except for bite. So you can actually just tail ride the Stego and just kill it. You see? I would not mind if Raptor becomes a dinosaur that has to bite the smaller dinosaurs and pounce the bigger dinosaurs, because this keeps Raptor relevant for longer. It means that as more apex dinosaurs come out, Raptor is going to have an easier time than the other dinosaurs at killing them. It is fast to grow, relatively speaking, towards these apexes, which means you can hunt them down when they are subadults. You know? I quite like this. So yeah, that is the basics of the Raptor strategy that we are now pushing towards in the future. We now have to talk about tap pouncing. How does tap pouncing affect things? Well, with tap pounce, the initial bleed of the tap pounce we haven't tested properly, but it does exist. I would not really recommend using the tap pounce except for against these dinosaurs, but even then it's not really worth it because you could just miss. You see, tap pounce could be good against the Stego, but generally tap pounce doesn't really seem to be as impactful as it is right now. It still is good, right? Because it completely avoids the need for the dinosaur to buck you. But many people got very, very confused of why tap pounce was so good. The reason was because in Spearow, you had a 7-second buck time, meaning that if you could just get in any amount of bleed, you see, without being bucked, it took a second after you were latched on for them to be able to start bucking, you see. This meant that you could effectively avoid the bucking and keep your stamina high and just keep pouncing. And multiple tap pounces was more than just the bleed you would get from doing that 7-second pounce with the buck. It was more useful. But some people completely disregarded this and just said, I'm going to always tap pounce. Then they'll be punished by it because the player now knows you were going to tap pounce. So they can just alt bite you as you latch on. Then when you dismount, they just run at you and just keep biting you and you die. Ta-da. Furthermore, Stego's had a much easier time hitting you on dismount because they knew you were going to dismount after 1 second. The reason why tap pounce was good was because if you were tap pouncing, they would stop bucking. If they stop bucking, it means that during your next tap pounce, you can stay on for longer, right? Because they won't think to pounce. They might even actually attack, meaning that you might actually be able to get a 3-4 second out pounce with more bleed than you had before. You know, you see what I mean? With this change, you actually want them to buck, especially stegos. If a stego bucks, it can be very, very devastating for it. So you actually want dinosaurs to buck you off with this new change. I would recommend, if you do land a pounce at any of these dinosaurs, go down to half of your stam, dismount, run away, start resting up. You know, that's what you want to do. So there you go. Because if we take Carno, for example, I should take Carno. Let me just put my microphone down, so I may be a bit quieter. So keep in mind, we take Carno's bleed. We do this bleed here, and we divide it by 2. So for half a pounce. Oh, whoopsie daisy. That's not what I want to do. I want to do brackets 100 minus this number here, and then divide it by 2. 11 bleed. Ta-da! You now take that 11 bleed, and you multiply it by the Carno running coefficient, which is here. You see, it takes 36% bleed. Meaning that with a half pounce on a Carno and it runs after you, it loses 36% of its bleed pool. Assuming these numbers are still correct. I still need to test them. But things keep changing, so it's always annoying when you start making progress and then things change and you have to do it again. So if you now have two raptors doing this, we just do equals 2 times this number here, 73%. Ta-da! You see. So you can now start doing stuff like that, where you can actually start killing these dinosaurs with smaller bleeds like that. So that's what I'd recommend. This isn't exactly the best video to explain the differences, but it gives you the brief overview for what the new Raptor strategy is. And there will be videos showing the strategy in action, so look out for those. And for now, goodbye. Have a good one.